Welcome to the Explainer. Okay, tell me if this sounds familiar. You read an entire page of a textbook, close it, and immediately realize you have absolutely no idea what you just read. Nothing. Or maybe you spend hours trying to cram for a test, only to feel like your brain is a giant sieve, just letting all that vital information slip right through. It's incredibly frustrating, isn't it? Well, what if I told you it's actually possible to drastically increase your learning speed, like retaining information almost instantaneously? Today, we're unpacking a highly effective study framework designed to help you understand and memorize pretty much anything up to 10 times faster.
Let's be totally honest for a second. Do you study but just can't seem to remember any of the material? Picture this scenario. You sit down to watch an online lecture. It's supposed to be a 2-hour video, and you even put it on 1.5x or 2x speed because you want to save time. But somehow, between pausing, rewinding, or just totally zoning out, it still takes you way over 2 hours to finish. And the worst part? By the end of the whole shebang, you've retained almost nothing. If that hits a little too close to home, I really want to validate your struggle right now. You are absolutely not alone, and hey, it's not a problem with your intelligence. It's just a problem with your methodology.
Okay, let's dive into this. Across the board, there are 4 universal problems almost every student faces. First, a painfully slow learning speed. Second, a complete inability to focus. You sit down to study and suddenly you're scrolling through social media reels or chatting with friends. Third, relying on the completely wrong study methods. And fourth, constantly forgetting what you just worked so hard to learn. The truth is, top-performing students don't have magical brains. No way. They simply use different, highly targeted methods to bypass these exact 4 roadblocks.
So to solve these problems, here's our roadmap to 10x learning. We're going to cover concept-based subjects, memorization subjects, language and application subjects, and finally, the ultimate secret. The grand solution here is categorizing your subjects. Because reading a textbook passively simply doesn't work for everything. We need a highly structured framework.
Let's kick things off with Section 1, Concept-Based Subjects, specifically understanding science.
In sciences like biology or chemistry, you have to juggle 2 really difficult things at once: understanding deeply complex concepts and memorizing hyper-specific details. That is a heavy cognitive load, which is exactly why our focus tends to drift. So how do we fix that drifting focus? The answer is the number 25, the 25-minute deep study rule. See, scientifically, you don't need to study for 2 hours straight. Actually, scratch that. You really shouldn't. You only need to study for 25 minutes. But, and this is a big but, those 25 minutes must be absolute, uninterrupted deep focus. After that, you take a strict 5-minute break. Why? Because you need to train your brain to maintain absolute focus and then allow it to recharge. It's exactly like plugging in your mobile phone. When you give your brain that 5-minute recharge, it drops the fatigue, resets your attention span, and gets you ready for another highly effective 25-minute sprint.
Now, what's really interesting about this is how we guarantee you actually learn those complex concepts during your 25-minute sprint. We use the famous method. Here's how it works. Once you finish a chapter, close the book. Literally, do not look at it. Now, find a friend and teach the entire concept to them out loud. If you don't have a friend around, just teach it to yourself. Teaching forces your brain to verify if you truly grasp the logic of the concepts or if you were just passively reading words on a page. If you can explain it simply, you've mastered it.
Moving right along to Section 2, Memorization Subjects and Conquering Social Studies.
These are notoriously heavy, text-dense subjects where we all endlessly struggle to remember a dizzying array of dates, names, and geography. To conquer this memorization, I want you to visualize a piece of candy with me. Let's say a Melody toffee. Really picture it for a second. Can you see the crinkly wrapper? Can you imagine the feeling of tearing it open? Can you vividly recall that rich, chocolatey caramel taste on your tongue? Notice how effortless that was to remember. That's because when you eat a piece of candy, you're engaging multiple senses all at once. Touch, sight, taste. Your brain takes all those sensory inputs and weaves them into an unbreakable long-term memory. And that, my friends, is exactly the secret to studying heavy memorization-based subjects.
We apply that candy analogy using the use your senses method. When you're studying history, don't just stare silently at a book. You're only using one sense. Instead, read the text aloud so your ears hear it. Keep a rough notebook right next to you, and as you read, continuously scribble down dates, names, and facts. It doesn't need to be neat at all. It's just rough work. By engaging your eyes to read, your voice to speak, your ears to hear, and your hands to write all at the exact same time, you are forcing your brain to print that information directly into your long-term memory. It creates a complete mental picture that is almost impossible to forget.
Okay, on to Section 3, Language and Application Subjects. We're talking about mastering Hindi, English, and math.
When it comes to mastering languages, let's be real. Long, dense stories can honestly just put you straight to sleep. And this brilliantly illustrates the massive difference in how students approach reading these texts. The normal way is reading from a distance, passively scanning the text, which leaves your eyes and mind totally free to wander and get distracted by literally anything in the room. But the topper way? That's something called the fingertip method. I want you to literally use your finger to physically track the text, line by line as you read. This incredibly simple physical trick locks your eyesight to the page and can boost your focus by a staggering 80%. Combine this with closing the book after every story or poem to actively recall the plot in your head, and you will never fall asleep reading a language subject again. For sure.
Now, when it comes to application subjects like math, which require rigorous, hands-on application, the strategy completely shifts. You can't just read math, you have to practice relentlessly. Think of your brain like a cutting-edge AI model. An AI needs massive amounts of data to recognize patterns, right? Well, your brain needs exposure to dozens of different math problems to recognize those underlying patterns. So, you have to feed your brain data by solving problems over and over. Plus, you absolutely must maintain an error log. Keep a dedicated notebook just for your mistakes. If you constantly mess up that trigonometry formula, sine squared plus cosine squared equals 1, write it in the error log. Reviewing your specific, repeated mistakes is exactly how you patch the holes in your AI model.
Let's move to our final section and see how this builds up to the ultimate secret, finding your motivation.
We've talked about the 25-minute rule, utilizing your senses, the fingertip method, and training your AI brain. But here's the thing. None of these targeted methods will work without this final piece of the puzzle. You have to find your why. This is the ultimate secret. You can have the best study hacks in the world for science, math, and social studies, but without a core, deeply personal reason to sit down at that desk every single day, none of those strategies will stick. You have to identify the driving force behind your effort. Is it to get specific marks? Is it for personal pride? Is it a stepping stone to a massive life or career goal? Without that foundational motivation, you'll eventually just give up when the material gets tough.
So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this one provocative question. What is your why? I highly encourage you to take a moment right now, reflect on your ultimate motivation for learning, and firmly establish it in your mind. Because once your why is clear, and you apply the structured framework we've covered today, your learning speed will truly become unstoppable. Thank you so much for joining me, keep focused, and I'll see you in the next one.